I'm already nervous.
Okay, we're recording. Welcome to the Digital Mentorship Podcast. I'm your host, your hot with Scott Kellner. Today, my guest is none other than Amy Roskelley. Digital Mentorship bringing you conversations, connections, professional experiences, all trying to help close the gap between what you think your career could be or what your career has to be and what it could be. Pow. Okay, well, today my guest is Amy Roskelley. She's grew up in Salt Lake City, who went to the University of St. Andrews, and where she studied modern history. She currently works for Zions Bank as a wealth advisor, or for a wealth advisor. Her title is office manager. Apparently she's run 21 marathons. She's crossed the Atlantic Ocean 20 times, and she has 5 kids. 2 of those are true. 1 of those is a lie. I know the 5 kids is a lie. But that's a lot of times that you've crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Wow. Was that because, semester at sea, you only crossed it once?
No, I didn't even think of that. I didn't include that.
Oh.
So I was only counting flights.
So how did you end up at the University of St. Andrews?
Well, that is a great question. I went to Scripps College, which is an all-women's college in Southern California, straight out of high school, and decided that small liberal arts college feel, and especially all girls, was not for me. And so I kind of just took a year off and worked at home. And I had a friend who was attending University of St. Andrews as a full-time student. And so my mom and I kind of thought it would be a good experience for me to do that as a study abroad almost, and just spend a year and kind of decide what I wanted to do. And then I went there and I just loved the town so much and the people and the educational opportunity there that I just decided to stay. So I enrolled as a full-time student.
And what was that like, going to school so far away from home and being so far away from your family? Was it wonderful? Or
Well, it was back in the day when there was long distance, so we had to pay to talk. Sometimes I'd have a $30 or $50 conversation with my mom on the weekends, and there was no like AT&T unlimited long distance at the time, or where you pay a flat rate, or WhatsApp or cell phones. But it was fine, and I came home. Like, that's why I've crossed the Atlantic so many times. I came home for Christmas and spring break and summer, obviously, every year. So I didn't just stay over there. And I made a lot of wonderful friends. And funny story too, my brother, who's 3 years younger, started college, obviously, shortly after I did. And I used to take the opportunity to go to the computer lab so we could instant message each other at the outside of the internet on what was called an IVAX. Now, what we do as like iMessage, but I would sit in the computer lab and we'd set a time, because he was in California and I was in Scotland, that we would be in the IVAX or in the computer labs at our respective universities on the IVAX so that we could instant message one another for an hour, because it was free.
Wow. Well, that's, I've never even heard of IVAX. I can't even understand. That sounds like you and your brother are close, though. So that's great.
Yeah, we would have to Google it, because I don't know what it means.
So how do you feel like your degree in history helps you with your job?
It doesn't at all. Even little bit. No.
So how did you get into working in private wealth management? If you studied history, what did you want to be when you got older? What did you think about when you were studying history? What did you think about was going to happen?
I don't think I did think about it, or I probably wouldn't have.
You were just passionate. You were just passionate about history. You liked your teachers. You liked the material. But it wasn't. You knew that it wasn't necessarily something that was going to lead you to a career.
No, I definitely did not plan on that being a career. Even thinking about being a teacher, definitely not up my alley. And what else does one do with a history
I feel like
degree?
you'd be such a good teacher, though. Maybe. Maybe not.
You're funny. No, I would not. Um, so yeah, I didn't really think about it. But what I did do was during my summer months, I did various like different jobs. One summer, I actually worked on a political campaign for someone who was in Utah running for Senate.
Who was
Uh,
that?
or maybe it was House of Representatives, Karen Shepherd.
Karen
So
Shepherd.
I worked for her. And that was on the heels of having worked on Dee Dee Corradini's campaign when she ran for mayor in Salt Lake. So I was kind of active just in that. And then probably two different summers, actually, looking back on it, I worked for my mom's stockbroker at what was then Lehman Brothers, and then Shearson Lehman Brothers, and then Smith Barney, because we went through all those iterations while I worked there. And I kind of had an interest and passion for that. And so when I graduated, I wasn't going to work for him anymore, just because personalities and hiring. But I decided to apply at Fidelity Investments because I thought, well, at least I can get licensed, get up my foot in the door, get some experience, and see if I actually do like this. And that kind of set the stage for my whole path.
What do you think? So, so you started at Fidelity, and then you went to Goldman,
Correct.
and then you took a break and you did
Pharmaceutical sales.
Pharmaceutical sales. And was that because you were tired of working in finance, or why did you make that switch?
Well, several reasons. First of all, I had 3 kids at the time, 3 babies basically, and I had other girlfriends who did that job, and they're like, this is a perfect working mom job because it's very flexible. It's sales, and you do have to work from 8 to 5, but it's also flexible when you have things you need to get done, like go to school programs or soccer games, or go out to a doctor's office early to make your sales call and then come home and take care of things on the home front. So I really love that job, and I do have a passion for medicine. That's my missed career opportunity.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. You can save that. So, and then you eventually went back into finance, though. I think you went back to GS.
I did.
And then
I went back as a part-time. I've job shared with a
friend. And then you were at RBS, and then as a manager, and this whole time you're in wealth management. Sort of, maybe different areas.
Operational.
RBS was more operational, and then Morgan Stanley, which was operations, and now. Ideally, when I'm doing this, I'm going to hopefully have like somebody's resume so that like I know you, for instance, like I know your background, but like when I interview somebody else,
I'm impressed with your memory of the timeline.
And then Morgan Stanley, where we met, and now you're at Zions. So what do you think? Let's talk about what you do now. Past is out of the way. We past is done. You work for private wealth management. When you work for a financial advisor. What does Zions Bank in general do? Like, what do you feel like the mission of the bank is, and where are you kind of like within the organization as a whole?
Okay, well, the bank is definitely a bank, and it's also composed of 6 or 7 affiliate banks throughout the West.
I think that's something that's interesting that people don't know necessarily about Zions, is that it is like a holding company, right? It's like there's like the bank corp.
It's a bank corp.
Which is like the Bancorp, which is like sort of an umbrella entity. And then there's all these little entities underneath it. And Zions is really only one of those. Zions Bank is really only one of those little entities.
Right. And so I probably can't name them all, but California Bank and Trust, Nevada State Bank, there's Amegy Wealth or Amegy Bank, which is in Texas, actually, Vectra in Colorado. So we have a lot around the Mountain West. And so we have affiliates there, and those are all banks, but every bank also has just like we have mortgage department, we have loans department, we have, commercial lending, all that type of stuff. Then we also have wealth. So that's something that started quite some time ago, way before my time, called Contango. And then there was like Zion's Direct, and then they've kind of morphed it into Zion's Wealth Advisors and Zion's Wealth Management as something that they want to offer as a more full service offering to our clients, so that they can have a one-stop shop for banking and wealth and lending.
So for somebody who's been, so all of that, that is a good, I feel like that helps people understand kind of like what Zion's Bancorp is and kind of where your role is in the company. Talk a little bit, you know, maybe about more specifically how you talk to, you know, what your communication is like to clients, what the sort of like maybe like a client life cycle is kind of like what do you feel like you know, you're kind of like what your job is kind of like, and in terms of helping clients, servicing clients, you know, things that you like about it, things that you don't like about it. You know, maybe talk a little bit more specifically about your role.
Okay. The interesting question that you asked that really leads to the rest is the life cycle of the client at Zion's, because it's a very unique setup. And I would say it's similar to, you know, Wells Fargo's, Mountain America's, KeyBank, all that bank setup, because the advisors almost 100% work off leads generated by the bankers. And so it's not like a cold call situation. They sometimes get leads on their own, and sometimes maybe even a referral from another client, but largely they get their referrals from the branches. So people that go into the branch deposit a large amount of money. The banker notices that they have $1 million in cash in their checking account or something ridiculous. And so they actively solicit the wealth advising opportunity. Also, you know, we have private and executive banking. So those are higher dollar clients, business banking. And so those are also lead generation opportunities for the bank. And the bank is compensated on those leads. So they're encouraged to source leads for the advisors. So after they have that banking relationship generally, then the banker will introduce one of the wealth advisors, and that's kind of how the cycle begins. The particular advisor I work for usually will sit down, and he's very much into planning for clients, and so that's where he thrives and really adds value. Obviously wealth building and accumulation, but he loves to plan and do cash flow analysis and things like that, which is really great value to clients when they're trying to project what they're going to have going forward and how much they can spend and things like that. So my role now at Zion's, which is very much a hybrid of my other roles in wealth or in the finance industry, because I'm doing operations and I'm client facing. So basically the advisor, once he secures the relationship, hands off to me. I do the account opening and all the back office work, but then I'm also following up with the client, doing the touch points and trying to do the warm fuzzies to keep the relationship going, besides the advisor's check-ins with the client and annual reviews. So he does all the brains, and I do the operations and the warm fuzzy relationship management.
Yeah, it sounds like you almost manage the relationship more than he does, maybe.
Oh, we can't say that on this podcast. There's no way. And no, it's very, very equal, if not more sided to him. So
yeah. Well, so that's interesting. I like, you know, I know, so speaking from my own experience, working for a private wealth management firm, working for an independent advisor, generating leads is hard. And so I think there's kind of, you know, maybe a trade-off between having an affiliation with a bank and some, you know, being able to receive those leads and not having an affiliation with the bank.
It's a definite pro and con. Like,
I mean, what is your take on that? Like, what do you think? What does the person that you work for think about that? What do you, in terms of somebody who's thinking about, you know, maybe going into this space for a career as a job, as something that they are thinking about? Should I go the independent track like Scott, or should I go the affiliated track like Amy and Ben? I mean, I'm not sure if we should say his name. We'll just leave it as Ben. And or should I go the affiliated track, you know, with Amy and Ben? Would you say affiliated? I don't know, affiliated.
Well, it's interesting because, now that I have worked here, I've worked here for 3 years, and the person I work for is a much more senior advisor. And so the compensation structure for the more junior advisors versus the senior advisors is very different. And that is where it comes into the pro and con. So the junior advisor with us, he's just barely, like, the bank pays them a salary at the beginning. So they have a guaranteed amount while they're building their book, getting their leads, and then they kind of set them free. But the amount of revenue they're paid from the bank is dependent on how much they have under management. So the more you get, the more you get. And that is motivating. But I feel like, if we were on our own in our own independent shop, the compensation that the advisors take for themselves would be certainly higher because they have to share their revenue with the bank. However, then you have to generate all your own lead opportunities. So,
Yeah.
And especially Zions Bank, it's a well-known, established institution in Utah, certainly, and people trust the bank, and it's a big name here. And so people who are clients there want to think that Zions is their one-stop shop. Like, this is my relationship. And so I think that creates a lot of opportunity for the advisors, especially those that embrace it.
Oh, excuse me. So if you're thinking about kind of like the future, I mean, what do you think about, you could answer this question for yourself. You could answer it for kind of like the industry in general. Like, where do you kind of see yourself going? Where do you kind of see the industry going in terms of how, what the client, where like the client relationship piece can go to the next level, how you can service them better, and maybe kind of just, the investments, professional investment management in general?
That's a great question, but kind of a hard question. I do think that, and you would know this very much from your role at your current job as well, I think people want to do well with their investments, but you finally get to a point, they're too busy with their current jobs to make, it can be like a full-time job trying to figure that out if you really want to research things. And people also want the expertise that a financial advisor can offer them, because it doesn't just mean stock picking or portfolio picking. It's, like I said, it's the overall picture of, like, let me get you in touch with an estate planner. Let's get you in touch with a CPA to maximize your tax situations. Let's make cash flow plans so you can figure out if you're going to be able to buy this boat or this second home or whatever it is. And so I think that that's the value of having an investment advisor versus trying to go it on your own and pick your own stocks. People have a hard time, I think, biting off paying a fee, but once you see your return, even less the fees, I think that people get more comfortable with that and also feel like they're getting a value for what they're paying. So that's as far as what I think the value is and what people are willing to pay for. Where do we see ourselves going? I just know that the advisor I work for wants to grow his book quite exponentially, but he's not planning to do it with smaller accounts. He definitely wants to go after bigger things so that he has fewer clients with more assets under management. For me, that just makes me busier and more relationship management. It also, because I'm fortunate to be on a revenue share platform, I'm paid a base salary by the bank, but then I'm also paid a percentage of revenue that the advisor gets. And so the more money he gets under management, then that also helps my bottom line. So that's just my unique situation.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for that insight. I guess, if you were going to be giving advice for somebody who maybe wants to be a financial advisor or is thinking about pursuing a career in financial operations, what maybe what advice would you have for that person, that's like still kind of in college and maybe trying to figure that out? And, maybe what, I forgot what I was going to ask. Ask that, what advice do you have for them? And let's just go with that.
Okay. I mean, I feel like when I was answering your questions, just kind of preparing for this conversation, looking back, I definitely feel that I wish I had more guidance, but I don't even know if any of us are open to guidance when we're 16 and 17, and you don't know that you don't know anything until you're like 25, right? So I feel like the experiences that I did have, like on my summer jobs or even high school jobs, I think what that helps you do is know what you don't want to do. Like, I definitely know I don't want to do this, whatever it is. So I think that those things are valuable. I think, like, because you've had a friend go through the same process that I went through, I do feel like doing the Fidelity or the even though it kind of sucks, like the call center experience, or even working at Goldman.
Shout out to Dylan Dukanich, by the way, real quick.
Oh, yeah, I was talking about Dylan.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good way to, it's A, you get your licenses. B, you get a ton of client-facing experience. C, like in the role that Dylan did and what I did at Fidelity when I worked in our premium services, you get sales experience because you're trying to bring in assets to the firm, or in Dylan's case, probably sell bonds or whatever. So you get a lot of good hardcore experience. And I do feel like I used to feel like this at Goldman Sachs, like every one of those, or maybe even at Morgan Stanley, like every one of those kids working there, they should have had to work at Goldman or Fidelity to get some work ethic and understand, like, you have to be here on time, you have to work a certain amount, and you have to produce, or it's not going to work. So I feel like those were good experiences for me personally and for Dylan. Definitely working at Goldman is a trip in the financial industry because it really infuses you with hard work, and trying to work your way up, and definitely having to put in time. It is no joke there, and it's great for someone who's young right out of the gates to learn how to work hard and then take that experience and translate it into a new position. So it's hard, but I would say it's a good thing too.
So you feel like the experience that you got at Fidelity and the experience that you got at Goldman were both great ways for people that are thinking about pursuing a career in financial services to start?
To get licensed, because a lot of places like Zion's, the role I'm in, I had to have a license, and unfortunately I had let those lapse, but they felt confident I could pass those exams because I had already done it once, although it was quite some time ago. But it's much easier to just get those licenses at a place like Fidelity, where they have a class for you. Your time is dedicated for that, instead of having to work all day, come home and study for 4 hours, and no one really giving you any guidance if you don't know what the heck you're doing. So I think that was a great way just to find out, is this for me? And, we would say the majority of people know a call center is not for them, but it's a good place to learn the ropes and how to communicate and, those types of skills.
Well, Amy, thank you so much. If people, if any of our listeners, I know it's kind of geared towards like younger people, but it's possible that they might have some money and could be possible clients. How can people get in touch with you, get a hold of you? Social media. What's the best way to connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, so that would probably be the best place, as people can find me, Amy Roskelley, on LinkedIn at Science Wealth Advisors.
Okay, well that's great.
Send me a message, or if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining Digital Mentorship and sharing your information with us about your career. And
thanks for having me on your show.
I hope we can do it again. And I love you.
I love you too. We should fix your office. It doesn't look very good.
Yeah, I don't know if this is where I'm going to stop recording.